Hey guys, how's it going? It's been a little bit since I've done an update on what I'm up to, so I thought I'd record another video sharing just that. For those of you who have been following along with my videos, you know that I'm an aspiring career writer. So I'm devoting as much time as possible right now to practicing the art of writing, particularly at the moment, writing fiction. And doing my best in a relatively short amount of time to put out as many books as I can. So I've been busy with that process since my last video. I'm currently writing book 2 in a fiction series that's probably going to end up being 4 books. And basically it's kind of like a Harry Potter sort of magic school story, but with Eastern style magic. And one of the twists in this series is that magic is kind of a pain. It's like, what do you say? It's like a boot camp sort of scenario. Like magic does not come easy. So I'm in the process of writing that. And since a lot of my work right now is in developing a process of writing, I thought that would be a good focus for this video. Again, to just talk about what specifically I'm doing every week and in every period of time as I put together a story. So right now, my writing process has fallen into a neat series of chunks, each of which is about 3 weeks in length. So right now I'm in the middle of a 3-week spell where I'm writing the first draft of a story. So to make it clear, my plan is to write the entire first draft of this book that I'm currently writing in 3 weeks. If you break that down, a normal novel is something like 75,000 words. So if I'm going to do that in 3 weeks, comes to basically 2,500 or so words per day. Not an easy thing to do, but the reason why I'm choosing to kind of casually select a 3-week period for writing is that, number one, I think it's possible, and I know it's possible because I've already done it successfully twice, and it keeps things moving. When I've got a brief deadline like that, 3 weeks to finish an entire first draft, it ensures that I don't get too precious about the process of writing. Because I do get precious if I don't have those kinds of deadlines. Before I'd set this, I had been banging my head against a book for 8 months, which obviously for some people spending 8 months or longer on a book is, just fine. And obviously, if you spend that amount of time on a book, you are going to end up with a more refined, better material in some ways than if you just moved quickly through the process. But for me, I had no idea how long it was going to take before I actually finished that book. It could have taken years, and I found that I benefit from that deadline. What it does is it makes me less precious about the process of writing. And the reason that's important to me is because as a developing writer, I want to get as much experience as possible on creating a finished work. I want as many opportunities as I can to plan a book, write a book, edit a book, publish a book, market a book. And so I found that if I scrunch that deadline down, then I get more chances to practice something like that. And even if the outcome in the end is going to be something that's less refined than if I devoted more time to it, I'm getting the practice. And in the long run, that kind of practice is ultimately going to output a better material than if I was somebody who only got one chance to practice editing a book per year, for example. So I'll break down what this process of writing a book is turning into so far for me. And like I said, it's broken into like kind of 3-week chunks. So, for example, I've gone most of the way through the process of book 1, and what that turned out to be was I spent about 3 weeks planning what the book was going to be about. Then I spent 3 weeks writing the first draft, spent 3 weeks editing and creating the second draft, and then I sent it off to a developmental editor. That's where book 1 is now. It's currently being looked at by the developmental editor, and I'm not sure what's going to happen after that. I guess we'll see how many changes I need to make. I'm assuming that I'm going to learn a lot about what I don't know about writing when I see the results of the developmental editor. There's going to be at least another draft, which I presume is probably going to take me about 3 weeks to do, and then maybe I can publish book 1. So it's interesting that these books are kind of folding into each other. I'm doing book 2, but book 1 isn't published yet. I didn't know that was how it was going to work at the time. But I'm actually glad, because that means that some of the context of planning book 2 I can reweave back into book 1, which is ultimately going to make the whole story more cohesive and interesting, I think, than if I just book 1 all the way to the end, book 2 all the way to the end. So I spent 3 weeks planning book 2 after I was finished with the second draft of book 1. And now I'm in the middle of writing book 2. So it's been a really interesting process for me. I've tried to really focus on just the practicality of showing up and doing the writing every time. I could have been devoting this time to reading about how to write better. You know, in a way, like, I know a lot of my writing skill is poor in certain areas. And the more I write, the more I see just how much I need to learn about writing. But it seems appropriate, rather than spending lots and lots of time on analysis of this brand new art for me, of just getting my feet wet and doing it. Keep going. Don't worry. I'm sure a couple years from now I'll look back and be like, oh man, there's so much I didn't know about writing. If I went back, I could have written such a better book. But I've learned this from painting. If you look at your art with a certain amount of lack of preciousness, the thing I'm creating is not precious to me, then ultimately you can create something that's more beautiful in the long run, that is more reflective of your vision in the long run. So really, that's what I've been up to. In some ways, it's been kind of boring. I've just been sticking my head down and writing every day. But yeah, I say it's boring. I've actually had a really good time with it. It's just something I show up and do. And the routine is actually really relaxing, really refreshing. Writing many, many words every day has become something that can just happen, which seems a little bit like magic to me, because, you know, when I started off writing, it wasn't easy. It wasn't trivial to sit down and try to think of, like, oh man, what am I going to say? How do I get this on the paper in some way that kind of seems like what's going on in my head? You know, there's all this friction when you start off with any art, but a lot of that friction magically disappears through simple repetition. And that's something I've been able to see and experience, which is really a wonderful thing. I'm in a blessed situation right now where I have a free enough schedule that in a lot of ways I can dictate what my writing process looks like. And so for me, just to give you a window into what I do every day, what it looks like is after I drop my kid off at her daycare, I go to a coffee shop and I write for about an hour and a half or so. So that's my first writing section of the day. I try to keep that pretty sacred. I get my cup of coffee. Maybe I do a little bit of reading beforehand, or just stare out the window for a little bit beforehand, and then I get to writing. And I try to knock out maybe like 1,200 or so words in that first session. Then I go home, and I do take a shower and maybe eat an early lunch or something like that, take a walk. And then I try to fold in another writing session. And then later, a third writing session into the day. So ideally, I have 3 kind of 1.5 hour sessions of writing every day, each of which I try to do maybe like 1,000 words or so. It's not too hard to knock out 1,000 words because, like I said, I'm not too precious about it, especially in the first draft. That's a great thing about the first draft is you feel like you can just plow through it if you have a sense of it doesn't matter how stupid this writing is. The point is just to get the words out. It's actually very freeing and very fun. The first draft is probably the funnest stage for me. But that's what it looks like. When I'm doing an editing phase, it's looked pretty similar to that as well. Like maybe ideally 3 chunks a day, at least 2 chunks a day of just sitting for an hour and a half and working through whatever we're doing. The planning phases, similarly, about 2 or 3 chunks a day. But with planning, it's a little different with planning because some of it I'll do voice memos. So I take more walks when I'm planning out a book. And then actually on the other end, in some cases the planning is much more rigid. I need much more time, like almost mapping out what's going to happen in the story and trying to resolve tangles, looking at individual characters and figuring out how their arc can fit in to the flow of each chapter, which is obviously primarily the main character's arc. So the planning session is, I guess, a little bit more complex than the other phases. But again, my process is it basically breaks down into 2 or 3 chunks per day of working through the thing. And then that's about all I can do every day. It comes to max, I spend about 4 hours per day, like devoted single-mindedly towards the creation of my art. After about 4 hours, I'm pretty brain fried, and I can't do too much other than that. But I try to make myself, as much as possible, do those 4 hours, because if I didn't, well, that could very quickly massively extend the amount of time it would take to create a work. Like, say I only spent, let's say 2.5 hours instead of 4 hours a day writing. Well, then I'm spending 66% of the amount of time writing that I would have otherwise, which meant that the process of writing would take, that much longer to do. So I have a real sense in my mind of the compounding value of showing up for a certain amount of time every day and doing the work. Even if the work isn't perfect, there's a real powerful virtue to making sure that every day you are producing and getting it done, because there are real rewards over time with that. And I've already been able to see those rewards in action. Even the reward of just getting better at writing. It's funny, you don't need to necessarily spend time intentionally focused on getting better at an art to get better at it. In some ways, you can unconsciously get better at something just by familiarity, by pure practice. There are passive benefits that you reap from doing the art. So that's kind of the season for me right now. I don't have time to do everything I want to do with getting better at the art, but I found that by just showing up and doing the work, I do reap passive benefits from just doing the thing. So anyways, that's what I'm up to right now. I'm uncertain what's coming next after I finish book 2. Obviously, it's possible that the next thing I'll do is start planning and working on book 3 of the series, which would be a good thing to do. But I've got other plans for other fiction series that I could write, so I might take a break from this one and start working on another one. there's a lit RPG series that I have in my mind that I think could be fun and really cute to write. So I might do that. And on the other hand, once I finish book 2, I might dig into my nonfiction book a little bit that I had spent 8 months banging my head against. Here and there, I've been dipping back into it recently, and I love the book. I love what I'm saying in it. It's really insightful and interesting. It's about our relationship with words and ideas, and how those words and ideas kind of shape our lives, and in some ways control and limit our ability to really see what's going on before us. So the kind of subject that I really enjoy. So yeah, I'm not sure yet. I don't know what's going to come next. But right now it's just chipping away at book 2 and waiting for the results of the editing of book 1. Thanks for listening in. I appreciate you listening and being a part of my journey as I enjoy working towards being a career writer and enjoying the daily practice of just making up beautiful stuff. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye.